just like honey, sweet to taste on burning lips. Wanna lie beneath the water, feeling icy fingertips. Soothing nectar to my body, wash the image from my eyes. Dirty streets of hungry people, drink the water, dry your eyes. First one look at the reflections, listen to the music made. Drinking water's ease the mind, thoughts of you begin to fade.
The nation is under siege. The nation is under siege.
Well, good evening, everybody. This is Divided We Stand. It's Sunday night on the 22nd of September, getting closer and closer to that magical November the 5th. If you're unfamiliar with this channel, this is the Divided We Stand channel on YouTube. We ask that you subscribe. We're not monetized, so we're not looking for anything but your commiseration to join us in discussion, basically. Also, you can find us on Facebook. We have a very, very successful and popular group page called the Divided We Stand group page, and we ask that you become a member there. We do post the live shows on Facebook. We also posted on one of our, I guess you could call it a sister channel, Sandy's Environmental Coffee House. We post it there, so if you're watching on the Environmental Coffee House, we ask that you join us in the discussion. Tonight, we're going to deviate a little bit. My wife Ronnie's going to join.
Did I
Dave
hear you just say
me.
you were a deviant?
No. You seem to have a sordid mentality.
I don't understand why you're confessing.
Okay.
This is not soul searching.
All right.
Okay, so we've established that you're a deviant.
Dave, if you don't knock it off, I'm going to call your probation officer. Okay.
Can't find it.
All right. So, let me introduce everybody. We have two people in the green room right now, and let's move them to the show, and that would be my wonderful wife Ronnie Weinstein and my somewhat funny at times friend David Price from Arlington, Virginia.
This is another historic show. It's always great when there's a Weinstein on the show that I truly do like and respect.
Okay.
And
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate your comment.
Not you, loser.
Ron, good to see you again. on the show, of course.
I
What,
feel
you
like
don't
I've
see your
just
wife?
seen you so recently.
You saw me about 3 minutes ago, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, if anybody was watching this the other side of the world, they could say that, well, you were in Columbus, Ohio, and I'm in Bridgeton, and Dave is in his favorite state of Alabama. So who knows? So anyway, it's good to see both of you on the show, and we have, I think, a lot to talk about tonight. And as you know, Ron, and Dave probably knows, a couple of nights ago there was some news out of Georgia concerning ballot counting and how they have changed the rules because the Republican leadership there in the state government says, no, we're going to have paper ballots. And that really bothers me because, people think of paper ballots being the safe way. I don't trust them. I don't trust the count. And if they're willing to do that, how far are they willing to go? So I want to get both of your input, ideas of how we are going to deal with this. Are we going to have to deal with this in other red states where there are Republican governors? Because if they're doing it in Georgia,
Did you just say wed states?
red states,
Like,
red.
I know, but it sounded like wed states. I didn't know what
No,
you're
you
talking
have
about.
too
What?
much earwax. Now get it cleaned out for once. Which is interesting because Dave has mentioned many times to us that Judy has had that problem. Dave's wax is so built up that there's always this yellow stain on his pillow. Oh, I'm just kidding.
Well, at least
Look,
at
I don't
least
think
my-
he has any more earwax than the next
Hey,
person.
listen, at least my stain is not from a deviant behavior. So
Okay. You wouldn't. Oh, look, we have Sandy saying hello to Ronnie. Ronnie, we have Sandy saying hello to you. Love to see
Hi,
you.
Sandy.
So good to see you, Sandy, and good to see everybody. Who do we have in here? We have Anthony from Texas. We've got Veg from the great north in Canada, from not Windsor, I guess, London, Ontario. Not London, England, but London, Ontario. Good to see you, Veg, as usual. We have Joey Fulcher.
Maybe before you do the next show, you better take a speech class, okay?
Well, I have to, it's very confusing, London, because sometimes the first thing your mind thinks is London, England, not London, Ontario.
I will agree with that.
All right, so that just throws you for, and Veg is constantly, taking shots at his own town, calling it the armpit of Canada. I don't know that it's like that. I think he's just being a little funny with that. So, but who knows? Veg, who knows? Veg has some fun with things. Joey just said hello to you, Ron, so you should know that.
Hey, Joey Fulcher.
Looks like, Dave, you have volume problems. So says
Okay.
Sandy.
All right, let's take a whirl at it, okay?
Okay, can you bring your?
I'm adjusting.
If you just
Hold on.
turn on the red light, you should be good. In your
Isn't
mic.
that a song by Sting?
It is. It's about a prostitute, and it is. That's serious. So obviously your husband would know that because
Okay.
he confessed tonight at the start of the show. He's a deviant. Better, Sandy. Better, anybody. What do you got? I adjusted it. See what you got.
Your sound levels is. I've got you all the way up.
You're
You're all the way
controlling my
up.
sound.
I
said
think you're good. I mean, I
controlling.
can turn the rest of us down. I mean, that's not a problem. But
No,
I think
it's not that.
I think you're good. Sandy, if there's
Okay.
still a problem, you'll alert us.
A lot of times, ladies and gentlemen, Brian does that deliberately.
No,
sort of
I don't do that deliberately.
To manipulate,
Okay.
But what the heck?
Got to get your microphone situated. Okay, Anti-Guy has been talking. Okay, well, let's talk about paper ballots. Because I do understand the Republican Party. I think they're frightened of this loss, so they're going to do everything to tie things up. This will anger their own base because, of course, what's going to happen. Harris is probably going to win Georgia in a very, very close race. They're going to say we're going to do triple counts, and that's where we're going to have problems because who's doing the counting? You said, Dave, you have poll workers there. It should be okay, but I don't know that I can trust them. So, Dave, Marani, I'll throw it out to both of you. What's your feeling about this?
I
You wanna go?
I think my biggest problem is, obviously the Republicans trying to change. It's not just Georgia. It's going to be any state, that's close enough. Lindsey Graham asking for changes in the Electoral College. Really, though, isn't the biggest problem the Supreme Court? Because if they do tie it up, I mean, isn't that where it ultimately
Well,
is gonna go?
ultimately, that's the problem.
Yeah, so I'm just
But
saying,
I'm just starting from there with at the state level that we have to deal with it there first. And
I don't trust the process at this point at all.
yeah,
And
because when it's a
isn't
hand
that the
ballot,
tragedy? Isn't that the tragedy? If we don't trust the election process, that's what we are. So, there's a part of me though, I didn't want to start, but it's part of me that feels like he needs to win. Trump needs to win because the people who vote for him need to find out. Is there going to be any other way for them to find out what
find
the
out what
consequences are? What the consequences will be
of what
of him winning the election? And it's a huge possibility. Huge, and if he does, how will we ever recover from that?
Well, you don't.
Because quite honestly, there are things I don't think this country has recovered from yet for 50 years. Okay, the recovery process is slow. It's slow on an individual basis. It's slow on a national basis. There was a time when assassinations happened frequently, and remember how that felt when the president got shot and killed? Remember how it felt when JFK? I mean, we're old enough. A lot of people, my feeling is people don't understand what that feels like. And what consequences have these young people really suffered or, had? If young people support him and vote for him, there's going to be consequences. They may need to see it. They may need to feel it. It's like making a big mistake. I don't know. I'm starting to feel that way. So I'm ready for whatever.
Dave?
Well, Ronnie's right. Doesn't matter, the smartest among us, the dumbest among us, the false prophets, the seers, nobody knows what's going to happen. And the one thing we do know, this is as close as an election can be going in. That's one thing we do know. I know I've heard people say, "Oh, it's going to be a blowout." Well, it's not going to be a blowout for Trump.
No way.
It could, and it's not going to be a blowout for Harris. But
Well, you don't think you still think she could still win by 7 million votes?
oh well, here.
In terms of the popular vote,
You know what? I understand that. The only thing that the popular vote does is show you how bad our system is if the
Yes.
person who gets the popular vote doesn't win. The Electoral College is broken. It was broken from the day they went in. It was
Right.
done. It was done because of racial needs and the needs of the South. It was done to benefit from day one rural states, and it continues to be unfair. And the problem is because it's in the Constitution, it cannot be changed without a constitutional convention or Congress acting. And nobody's going to act in Congress,
Right.
Because it's too close. All right, so that's number one. We don't know, so it's all speculative. Ronnie talks, as so many do, about the fear. Anyone who's not fearful right now you better check your fear-o-meter.
I don't.
Now,
Yeah.
I'm not talking about. There's two kinds of fears. Okay, the fear that drives you under the sheets and holding your head. Not that kind of fear. What you need is to say, okay, what can I do today? What can I do today to do two things: elect Vice President Harris and stop Trump, because they're one and the same thing. Now, I might be the only person on the show tonight who's already voted. Virginia started their
That'd be
early voting.
correct.
Yeah. There are 3 states that started Friday, Virginia being one of them. So I will explain how they vote and why I'm relatively secure with how that process works. So we go into our polling place and, they actually check, of course. Just a humorous aside, as some of you know, every day from now until the election, I'm wearing an anti-Trump shirt or a pro-Harris shirt.
can we see your? I only see the black part of it. What does it say?
Yeah, hold on. Let me see.
A little bit?
Tonight.
Pro-America, anti-Trump.
Anti-Trump.
Gotcha. Good job.
Okay. But what I have, one of my favorites, because it's just it really is a cool shirt. is the Tide emblem for Tide. So
Yes.
Yeah.
it has that on there, but it has vote instead of Tide, huge, and it says removes ugly orange stains.
Yeah.
And so I go in the voting place with that on, and I did wonder because theoretically they can exempt you from campaigning. They couldn't stop you. They say go home and change. I mean, they wouldn't, but they could.
Right.
So I go in, and really nice guy. They're really good people that work the polls here. And he says, "Oh man, I like your shirt." I said, "I don't think so." He didn't see the bottom of it. He says, "Oh my God." I said, "No, I'm not accusing you of politicking." So we go in, and what they do after you've verified you are indeed who you are, you present them. I use my license. You could use your passport or any official document, and then they double check the rolls. You registered, and then they hand you a paper ballot. And you go to a station that's enclosed a little bit, separate, and you cast your ballot, and then you bring it back and you put it into a counting machine, right? And
Right.
And
But are we
that's
talking
the way it
about the
works.
same thing with Georgia, though? I mean, when they say paper
Well,
ballot,
we don't know that. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
That's first of all, I don't know. So why do I feel safe with that?
because they have to get rid of
I
all
think
the
it would be-
machines.
I think it would be much harder to manipulate those machines than it
Right.
would be direct online voting because that's now sealed, right, in the
Right.
machine. Now the other thing is there's no way. I actually talked to them about it. There's no way to access those except by people who have access to them, if that makes any sense, right? So in other words, if it's not fed into one system and it's in that machine, and then the machines are empty. So, do I feel relatively confident here? Do I think there'll be all kinds of shenanigans? Of course there will be. Everywhere and anywhere they can be. What I looked forward to or would say is, make sure obviously, make sure you know your voting rules before you go. Because Ronnie raised a really interesting point. Never in the history of American politics have there been so many proposed changes so late in the election year. That's not something you do. That's something you do. You make your changes in the first year after a presidential election or right after an election.
So you know something's up. That they
Well,
seem to know something. The Republicans seem to know that's forget the polls. They seem to know something from what they're doing.
There's something else, Brian, too, and Ronnie kind of alluded to that. Yes, they are trying to win, but they are more future oriented than Democrats. Okay, they've been doing this since the Goldwater years. This didn't just emerge yesterday. This was a planned going through different phases, right? Going through the Nixon phase, through the Reagan phase. Excuse me. Through we kind of got lulled because George Bush was kind of just okay, and then little Bush comes on. Of course, we got tied up in terrorism and the war. But what they want to do, and this is your buddy Steve Bannon, who still has the two most influential people to understand Donald Trump. Steve Bannon is not number one. Number one is Roy Cohn, the attorney. We mention it frequently, but people need to know this. Roy Cohn was also the advisor, spiritual and surrogate father for Joseph McCarthy during that period. And he has 5 rules, and Trump follows them exactly. He was also the surrogate father for Trump.
So essentially, you're saying that
this is
really
right?
Roy Cohn.
Roy Cohn,
the ghost of Roy Cohn is now.
There's no question because like one of those, and see if this applies. Lie, but tell the bigger lies because the bigger lie, a little lie can be found out. A big lie can't, and that's what
you mean. A big lie like he's gay?
Well, the interesting thing about that, Ronnie, is the fact that we continue to see that in history. Now, I don't know whether Roy Cohn was gay or not. He never propositioned me, but I'm 98% certain that he
And by the way, that
okay.
brings, and Ron, you may want to add in on this. This was something Sandy brought up. She said she has gay friends for pet.
I saw that and I wrote it down, and I wanted
So
to.
why don't you make a quick comment because you have good insight into this.
Brian and we've been talking about this because we've had our own family members who have, one has a gay son, one of my family members on my side had a gay father, both supporting Trump, and I really don't understand. I've worked with people in the salon and spa industry who are gay who voted for Trump. I know women. I mean, these are the groups that I don't understand who vote for Donald Trump. I just had brunch with my gay cousin and her wife this morning, and they're petrified too, Sandy. However, their son said to them that he's not a Trump person, but he can understand why people would support Trump because he did some good things. Excuse my air quotes, but I said, what good? I mean, seriously, because he supported Israel, and this guy, my cousin's son, is a very big Israel supporter. I mean, we are too. But does he really support Israel? Can you really believe a word out of his mouth? No. He will say anything at any time if he needs to say it, and then he will.
And he really hasn't said anything about Israel. And they ask him, "What would you do?"
Well,
he has no answer. He'll say, like, you got to go all the way or something.
Well, that's true, but au contraire, he basically says if he loses, the Jewish...
Yeah, he's going to blame the Jews, right.
You can blame me, that's fine.
Did that happen somewhere in a country in Europe? I forget, the 1930s? Something that didn't work out real well for the fucking world?
Yeah. And in fact, I would think that's going to be... For Jews in America, I think it's going to be the worst if he loses. Of course, we want him to lose, but he's gonna say the Jews. He's gonna be like Hitler. The Jews did me in, and that's what's going to happen.
But we got into this conversation talking about Roy Cohn and tie Lindsey Graham into this, and tie. I mean, really, the show that I'd recommend everybody to watch on, I believe it was Showtime, was Fellow Travelers. I don't know if anyone's watched that, but it was amazing. And it really focused on the life of these two gay men in a relationship. One was married, but worked for, in politics for McCarthy, but really put themselves out there. One was in the closet, basically. One was really out there. And, according to this series, of course, Roy Cohn was completely gay.
And he was. I mean, he was.
A self-hating gay person.
There you are.
And that is, lies in the problem. A lot of people say Hitler was gay. Who knows? I don't know.
No, Hitler, again, for the best historians we had, he did have a problem. And it's interesting how much time sexuality does play, because it's such a part of human existence. It does play in politics. It's bbeen pretty much established that Hitler did have a micro penis. Now, we don't know.
And one testicle, supposedly, too.
Yeah. And Ilse Braun took her life, so we don't know. There's some that his relationship with her was never consummated because he was. But it's just amazing as you come back. I'm sitting here thinking also, if you asked me, nobody did, but I'm going to answer it anyway. Who is the most powerful political figure of your lifetime? That would be 1952 to 2024, American person.
So somebody who's been in the longest.
Well, it would be J. Edgar Hoover, no question. Okay? Because J. Edgar Hoover had the black book on everybody.
Right.
Including Roy Cohn, including presidents. We're all excited now. Well, I shouldn't say. There's much excitement now, almost up to the Jeffrey Epstein level with P. Diddy and his secret, and Obama. I don't know if you noticed that the Obama's names have been linked with that.
What?
In what way?
Yeah. Brian, they just make shit up.
But here's
you mean the Republicans are saying that he's
well, yeah.
Okay. So there's no real evidence.
Well, hold on. There are some pictures. Well, of course, P. Diddy, whether you like him or not, is in the pantheon of rappers that are huge. They're huge. A small group of them. Biggie and Tupac are dead, so they can't be in that group. So of course you would probably come across them at some point. What I think happened is, what's her name? Chrissy Teigen. She came out, and I think this is what's so damaging about these reports. There's a small little tiny grain of non-truth in there. And she was asked one time, where is the, it wasn't strangest, where's the, and not even weirdest, but where's the most unusual? That was it. Where's the most unusual place you've ever had sex? And she replied, well, that Obama thing. Now, what I believe that she said was, they probably got it on in a closet while Obama was speaking. I mean, it had nothing to do with Obama. It's just, man, I had sex, with the president, or not with the president, but there. So you've got all this stuff going on. But I liked what you said, Ronnie, and it's scary as hell. But sometimes in life, you do have to experience the bad. And I think you're right. I think there's a lot now. We can say that young people, you can't say they haven't experienced it. Look, they're the generation coming to vote this time that have had to have gun drills, shooter drills since they went to preschool. Okay, this is that. And that's what I was going to say. J. Edgar Hoover. Yeah,
yes,
of course
he was. Yes.
Now here's a little known fact that we can do a shout out to my former town and your current town, Brian and Ronnie, Bridgeton, New Jersey. In his 50 years at the FBI, Hoover had one secretary, only one.
I remember you. Okay, now this is coming. You can tell us about that.
And her name was Helen Gandy. And Helen Gandy was a graduate of Bridgeton High School, where I taught for 25 years.
And would she have a beach named after her?
Well, her family was prominent. No, that was from something else. But what did happen was, and you say, well, you're making that stuff up. No, but what I found it really interesting when I was working at the museum. At the time, the FBI had closed their exhibits and put them in there. So we had these big FBI exhibits, and I would take guests through. And one time I had the son of an FBI agent who had been the head of the Arizona. And somehow we got to talking, Arizona FBI. And he said his father was terrified when he was called into Washington, D.C., not by J. Edgar Hoover, but by Helen Gandy, because Helen Gandy ran J. Edgar Hoover. Now think about that for a moment. She never got married. She married the FBI, and she married her allegiance to Hoover. Mm-hmm. The night he died, she and what I believe was his lover, Clyde Tolson, rushed to his place and got rid of all the dirt that he had. And when it came time to investigate, she said, "What, you want to investigate a 70-year-old lady? What's wrong with you?" And there are reports, this may or may not be true, that she didn't destroy all the documents. So she kept some for protection for herself, which often happens, right? But, people, even our generation, like the lavender scare, they don't remember that. They remember the Red Scare, the Red Menace. But I mean,
which happened
that's
twice.
What we're gonna,
right.
Twice.
Right.
But what we have is how is this? Okay, we are X days away, whatever that is, from destruction from the climate. We're X days away, whatever that is, from nuclear discussion. The new one that's really not new, but the one that's really surfacing that gives us pause is, or gives me pause, I shouldn't say gives us pause, is as the ice melts and the permafrost, there are bacteria in there that have not been seen in thousands and thousands
and we will be
of years.
exposed to that bacteria.
And we have no, and everybody's, I mean, the people that know it, we just have no antibodies, we have nothing. So, but it's we don't need all that. We will have a dystopia like you have never seen if Trump wins.
Right. Because we seem to have it now, but it
won't even be fathomable. Okay. Secondly, we have the problem that if he loses, we will see violence. But I would still prefer that he loses, and we'll deal with the violence at that point.
Right.
Now, back to that voting thing, which was interesting. And, you say, who supports Trump? So as we were there, we were asked that Reuters International wanted to take pictures of Americans voting, which happens a lot in D.C. because they kind of, that's where their bureaus are and stuff. And so all of us in there said, sure. Unfortunately, they didn't capture me, so I'm not going out all over the world because I just finished my vote. But as I was coming out, a young female reporter from the Taiwan news agency stopped me. And of course, when anybody asks, being a former journalist, of course I will, be interviewed because it's tough to ask that sometimes. You're cold. So she did a relatively long 15-minute interview. But of course, I said, I will do it, but I want to interview you or talk to you after. So my question to her was, what is the feeling in Taiwan, in your country, about Donald Trump? And she said, most all the people believe Donald Trump is best for Taiwan. And I said, why do they believe this? And she said, because the Republicans, now think how this links, the Republicans have always been the tough party on communism, which is historically true. The difference is there is no more Republican Party. There's the Trump MAGA cult. That's all it is. There are people who believe in that and people who are fearful of it. So I said, well, and she said, no. She said, some of us are coming around, and and we're trying to work that and do that. So certainly, the other thing is, Ronnie, when you say I can't understand why any minority, and by minority I mean anyone who's not a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, heterosexual, what else I want to throw in there, male, right, white, would vote for Trump. And actually, that's what's happening. The biggest gap in America right now between voters, of the young voters that are coming in, the extraordinary numbers for Harris with women, and the even more extraordinary numbers for young people of Trump. So I started looking into that a little bit, and my son is a professor, and he sees it daily. And I said, okay, let's figure this out, right? And what we kind of came up with is, on the fact of young white males, they want the mythical life that their fathers or grandfathers had. It doesn't exist anymore. And they are bitter and they're angry. And what does Trump do? Make America great again. So while you normally think of young people, or I have a tendency to think of young people as more liberal, especially the educated, that's not always been true. It wasn't true in the 60s, Ronnie. We were there.
Right. Well, that goes back to this idea in pop culture as a course has always said there are these myths, and what you just stated about the myths of the 50s, and 60s, especially the early 60s, but it's ingrained, and it's not a good indicator of the truth. Much like anything. Let
me ask you guys a question.
Print. It doesn't tell you
Both
everything.
Of you. And I'm going to do what I never do as a reporter, but I'm going to state my opinion first. And then I want you to either, I don't care, agree, disagree, I don't care, but I want to hear what you have to say. I believe that we right now have lost the ability in America to determine what the truth is. And I only see that getting worse.
Worse because of AI.
How do you see that? What do you guys see?
Go ahead, Ron.
I think it's because of the last 10 years. It's a big part of it. The longer it goes on, like I talked about recovering, you cannot recover from. And Dave, I'm going to go back to one thing that has something to do with this. You said there are those who believe in MAGA. Okay, I think if you, on the whole, would talk to somebody who says they believe in MAGA, and you ask them what they believe in, there aren't really answers.
Correct.
Okay. There's a couple of things, immigration and abortion. Okay. Those are two things, but that's not the majority of the country. However, it's not really a belief. I think it's more of a hatred. I think it's more of a fear. And how do you explain that? I think it has exacerbated, something that was there, but now has given license to and permission to. And now it's like an epidemic in and of itself. It's not like a disease, but it is an epidemic.
Oh, no question.
So,
and it may be worse than a disease, because sometimes you can find medicine,
right?
That can cure or at least restrain disease.
I'd much rather have a disease, than have an environment that is just based on lies. Brian knows me. That's the thing I hate the most. Dishonesty and lies, and not being able to trust anybody on what they're saying. And so I have a question for you.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
And Brian and I have talked. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but how much possibility do you think that those two assassination attempts were staged?
All right. That's a really interesting question. And most of my life, I guess, I've spent not believing in conspiracies. Just I and some you can debunk, but some you can't. You mentioned, I like when we do that on the show. You mentioned, the show to watch, and I'm going to do a couple shout outs tonight to things that I think would. I just finished reading for a project that I'm working on, The Presidents and UFOs. Okay, but I mean, there was a lot of possible proof in there that now
It got
common sense dictates it didn't happen. But it was interesting today, or I guess yesterday, a former Pentagon official who was working with the UFO investigation said, yes, they've been here for a long time. So my point is, conspiracy theories, they come, they go, they're there. Now, let's get back to the assassination. There is no question that something happened that doesn't normally happen with an attempt on the president's life, okay? And there are many questions that need to be answered. And one would be, how did, for example, in the first attempt, how did the assassin get so close? How did he get so close? I think that could be attributed, and we'll use the best English I know. The Secret Service didn't just fuck up that day. They fucked up royally, unless they were part of the conspiracy itself.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, you've got that. Then the other one is even more disturbing, because I got it. Now correct me if this is what I've been following. So Trump, we know, would rather play golf than do possibly anything else other than whatever else he does. He doesn't do much else. So he's out there playing. Now, I'm sure it's done. The Secret Service had asked him before not to play on his courses, to at least play on a course they could cover, right? And he refuses, because of course he wants to play on his course, not only because he can cheat, but it brings in, everything's about his name. So what I understand is he was playing, let's say he was playing hole 7, right? And there would be some Secret Service people with him there, but they'd send a couple, or I don't know how many, some would be at 8, right? Where nobody's going to be at 6, because 6 is gone. And apparently that's what happened. Is a Secret Service person spotted a gun. Okay. Now and fired. Now, people say, well, why didn't he hit the guy? Well, it's not as easy if the guy's moving, whatever. I mean, you never really saw him. I mean, there's been no indication that he saw the shooter. He says he saw the gun, right? The guy takes off. They recover the weapon, which of course is a weapon of mass death. They recover GoPro camera. What a great opportunity! Now this is a minor point, but it fascinates me. It may fascinate no one else. I've never seen them identify the type of camera. Okay, I mean,
the type of what?
The type of camera that he had. It's a GoPro, and what that is, it's a relatively new development in cameras where it takes action pictures. You can surf with it, but there's other brands. It's like saying, eventually they just gave up. Thermos, for example, was a copyrighted name, but everybody just started calling it. But maybe they were trying to do that, a GoPro, but they did that. And then the other thing I couldn't figure out is they said they had shells. I'm going, and that's all they said, shells. I'm going like, seashells? Pasta rotini shells?
Yeah, no. I'm sorry. I am pretty certain inside my soul that there's so many things that don't add up, okay? First of all, we never heard anything. First of all, how lucky can one MFer be? Okay?
Well, that's basically what Judy's kind of saying here, Ron. She said these attempts seem to occur after a bad day.
Exactly.
And that is interesting.
And they didn't cover him with their bodies. I don't call that a fuck up.
Well, they did cover him after, like in Butler, after the shots. They
but not very efficiently.
And that's what I'm saying. And of course, there are other things that are just strange. Certainly, a friend of mine, his daughter happened to be a Secret Service person, who was on the protective team for Michelle Obama. And I wouldn't want to face this young lady anywhere else. I mean, she was tough, and that's what they have. Unfortunately, I think for the Secret Service, one of the criticisms was the two women that were pictured were very short. And that doesn't mean a woman can't be in there. I'm not saying maybe they're the toughest women ever. But again, just this, obviously it appeared, or at least appeared to me, that they didn't send their A team, necessarily. Now, we don't know, and I don't know, I mean, we could find it out. They keep saying they're spread so thin. Well, there's got to be 200, 300 Secret Service agents, right?
And there were like 6.
That's what I'm saying. And and they say, well, of course, a former candidate for president or a former president doesn't get the same protection as a president or a current vice president. I got that. Yeah. Secret Service have to, they also protect Supreme Court judges, unfortunately, and some other people out there, but they're just spread so thin. So, Ronnie, I'd love being trying to be a conspiracy debunker all my adult days, and I cannot do this one. There are too many questions. For example, minor questions, but there. Okay, so the shooter, we're going back to Pennsylvania. The shooter is shot and killed. Okay, that's fine. I mean, you want to get rid of the, it's not like.
And that's what they, first of all, that's what they said. He was shot and killed.
I'm getting to that.
Okay.
Because what happens is he was cremated the next day.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Now help me out. Isn't there a thing in the Jewish religion about 24 hours or something, right? I mean,
were you buried to the body within the next day or something like that? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
they don't. I don't think they.
I don't think they were Jewish. I don't know of any other. I mean,
right.
Maybe.
Well, he wasn't Jewish.
The other thing, and it may just be an opportune lawyer, his mother and father have lawyered up, and this guy is one of the top 5 criminal lawyers in America. Okay, now back to the other guy. It's weird because the involvement with the Ukraine, with the Florida guy, he was pretty much, crazy as a loon. Would he have agreed to be a patsy for something? Maybe. And of course for Trump, what he does. There's no way, Donald, please come on the show, or I'll come over to your house. I'll if you let me close my eyes when I see all those Botox women down in Mar-a-Lago, I'll even come down there and meet you there. What I want to know is how the hell a bullet didn't leave a mark on your ear. It is impossible.
That's what I'm saying. How lucky. And by the way, I think we all know that Donald Trump is not a brave person.
Yeah, right.
Okay. And how he puts himself out there after he was shot with his fist in the air, and then they take him to the limo, but he wants to come back and he wants to be out there and please see me. What if there's another shooter? Don't tell me. And he doesn't care that somebody died. Okay? Oh, no. He doesn't care.
You heard that. That's the new thing now. He said something like he wouldn't know what a sacrificial lamb is, but it's something. And they tried to kill me. He said, no, they did kill an innocent person.
Yeah.
You're just a liar.
What did he say on day 1 of his first campaign? I can kill someone and not get in trouble. I can kill someone and it wouldn't matter. He's a mob boss.
Oh, no question.
That's his business. Okay? He wants to kill people.
Brian and I've talked about this before. I think it was recently his last show, but we've talked a number of times over the years. I have this belief that, how Martin Luther King said, the arc of justice bends slowly, but it's long, et cetera, that kind of thing. And I think there's some truth to that. But what I've never been able to explain is all the suffering that's done. Couldn't there be an easier way to do this? And I think that's kind of what we're having now is you have 2 people, and I don't know how many more, but we know 2. Donald Trump has no human characteristics, positive human characteristics. And J.D. Vance doesn't have it. I think Vance has another problem. Trump, I think, has mental disturbances. I think Vance is just an opportunist.
Right.
And not just, but they're coming from that.
Of the worst kind. Of the worst kind.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, and there was a great article that I read this week. And what it said was the idea, again, coming back to Cohn and what we talked about earlier, the idea is just a lie, because the lies distract from the fact that Donald Trump does have a playbook. It's a 938-page playbook. It's called Project 2025. 14 of his people were involved. And I don't know if you saw, and this is my new heroine. I just really, really like her. Please, Jasmine, don't do anything to disappoint me. Jasmine Crockett. And I don't know if you saw her in the hearing, and she was setting up people left and right. And she said this woman about the project. She said, well, do you think, Trump, do you think he was mentioned in there? And the woman goes, well, yeah. She said, do you think more than 5 times?
Yeah.
And she said, yeah. And she said, would it surprise you? What a way to set up a witness. Would it surprise you if I told you he was mentioned 512 times in that 930? Yeah. I mean, Crockett's just got it down. He's got Gretchen Whitmer.
Well, something happened there.
But
Ron
we have to get them.
again. There you go. I don't know what happened.
Okay, we're all back. This is what I put up with every week with your.
Oh no, I don't see Dave now.
Let's go. We're good. We're good. It's good.
Pictures aren't sound.
Ooh. They've got to join again. One of those nights.
Oh boy, it's Dave's energy.
Yeah. All right, Dave.
You're
good. I think we're good. We're good. I mean, I don't know what happened, but I think we're good.
Anyway, let me move on the topic just for a minute because I want to hear Ronnie's and your thought. Just when you think this can't get any weirder, it's almost like it can get weird at night and you wake up with it. It can get weird in the afternoon and you get it for lunch. You get whatever. And now we get Mark Robinson in North Carolina.
Oh.
Now, just a few things. And
who's endorsing him? Okay.
Well, we know that. But the idea of it is they haven't even reported what's so foul. CNN refused to do it. And I have mixed feelings about that. I understand pure interest, and you don't want to. But okay, so one of the things is his wife, and his wife's sister have 3 ways. Okay? Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all wrong with that. If they're all consenting adults. You can have a 26-way if you want. But here's where it gets wrong. He comes out and attacks people for their sexual proclivities, like transgender. And don't do that. Now, he says, think about this. He says he admits it to being a perv. Now, Brian and Ronnie, you are Jewish or, have Jewish descent. I've never heard of a black Nazi. I know such things exist. I mean, I'm sure but pretty much, at least the American Nazis, no, you come to our meeting, we'll kill you. Basically they want the exclusion because they want the right race thing. So he wasn't a black Nazi and then he did the Nazi thing. But why would you even begin to describe yourself as a perv? Now, they're saying it was 10 years ago. Fine. Okay. Yeah. There are things in my past, but I would have to own up to them. Right? And he won't. He just says they're all lies and we move on. No question. Trump, this is where I said I think sometimes evil does bite itself in the ass and falls. Trump didn't have to call him Martin Luther King on steroids. But he did, because that's Trump. And now Trump finds out that his Martin Luther King, actually said, I wish I'd been a white man because I would have been able to call him Martin Luther Coon. Now, I lived through that period, and that was the name that white racists called, because Coon being very, very pejorative there. Yes, and Marty brings that up, and that's what we're saying. It's almost as if, it's almost like Trump is like a weird magnet, right? I don't mean a weird, strange magnet. I mean a magnet for the weird, and because he is. And just look at the list of characters that surround himself. Where are you going to find Laura Loomer? Well, he found her, and she comes in. Where are you going to find Stephen Miller? Well, you're going to find him in Washington.
Right.
He really is. They're remaking, by the way, I don't know if you know, they're remaking the classic movie Nosferatu. if I'd been the director, I'd ask him to come because you could have saved on makeup. He looks like Nosferatu from the old
Well, maybe
Dracula.
your journalistic hero Hunter Thompson was right when the going gets weird, the weird turn pro,
And maybe, I mean, Steve Bannon. I learned a lot about. I'm not gonna. I'll talk about that later. I learned a lot about him this week and some bio stuff that came out. But you've got all this to go. So let's get back to Mark Robinson for a minute. Now, there's no doubt in my mind that the Trump campaign reached out to him and said, "Drop the fuck out." No question.
right.
He said no. He said no. He doesn't have to. Right? He doesn't have to.
That was good for us.
Very good for us. All right. Very good for us. If that doesn't enervate, you've got Kamala. You've got now a very competent, just a
Because
very
the
polished.
gubernatorial races are so important, even more
that's-
important to the Republicans, because that's how they're going to screw around with the voting.
But
and all that.
I wonder why he didn't drop out. I wonder why they didn't pressure him to the
no,
point
they
that
can't.
he dropped
They can't.
out.
Okay. Here's why, Ronnie. Because
They did it to
the only
Biden.
there's a difference. Biden is old school. And what I mean by that is Biden had a loyalty to the Democratic Party and he had a loyalty to the country. Robinson, Trump, Vance have only loyalty to themselves.
Right.
They don't care. Now, the one thing that I really dispute, and again, I try to be kind of kind. There's a lot of talk about, don't they vet these people? Yes, they do vet them. They don't care. They're their people.
Right.
They don't care. They don't care because now how the hell he got to be lieutenant governor, I have no idea.
Well, how did Vance get to be senator? I mean, this speaks of the people.
Well, Brian,
Because he
you know
was
the answer.
anti-Trump at first.
Well, you know the answer to Trump and Vance. They are what you call your cultural candidates. Pop culture, low-level culture. Vance writes hillbilly elegy. And then Ron Howard makes a movie about it. And so you got Trump, with the Apprentice. And we're saying, I don't know if you saw, it was an interview again. They've done it before. How hard it was for the staff on that show to make him appear anything, right? Human. He's just, there. But back to that state thing, that puts North Carolina right in play.
George Santos.
Okay. And it moves up. George Santos, another one.
Yeah.
They're there. So what's good about that? Here's what's good about that. All right. If Vice President Harris can win North Carolina, which should be doable now, could be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be close. And she can win Pennsylvania. And I know there are a lot of people said she should have taken Shapiro. No, she shouldn't have. She got the perfect candidate because Shapiro can work his state, right?
Right.
And Walz is better for the country, working the country. So it's a perfect decision. And she can win Pennsylvania, which is very doable.
Right. I mean, even with Walz as the pick, she can win because obviously Shapiro is going to help her out. Number one,
And that's what I'm saying.
and everybody knows how important it is to
Right.
win big in
And-
Philly.
So if she can do that, which are both very doable, all she has to win is either Michigan or Wisconsin. And it doesn't matter any other states in the union because she'll win the one she's supposed to. So Georgia's been taken out of play in that scenario. And I wouldn't put, backing what you said, Brian, I wouldn't put too much faith in a Democratic presidential candidate coming out of Georgia with the most votes. They could, but I don't think they will because things will be done. Let's see. That looks like a cat. Says police do not bother him.
Now, I don't know about
Yeah.
this with Judy. Thank you, Breon Peace, for taking down Santos BHS.
Was Santos one of your students? I don't know.
No,
Yeah,
no.
Jude, that's interesting. I'm. It's not you. It's me. Could give me just a little explanation either on air or later.
Yeah, Judy, help us out with that because when it says VHS, we're thinking of Bridgeton High School.
Bridgeton High School.
Yeah, no. And Judy, went to Bridgeton High School. Okay, here's
And
another
by the
thing.
way, Judy said something about, I'm trying to remember what she just said, about Mark Robinson and his wife are being
here it
brought up
is.
on charges? Okay, for stealing federal funds from food? Wow.
Again,
Wow.
all I'm saying is we all, and I'm not saying anything about Judy. I've
didn't hear that
decided.
one.
I've decided unless I hear him say it or her say it, I'm not relying on putting any. There's just too much. You've got, listen to what you got. I mean, think about it. You've got Iran, who's involved with disinformation. You've got Russia, which is involved with disinformation. Certainly, Kim Jong-un is doing what he can. And then on top of that, we know, I mean, it's just true. The MAGA cult lies.
Again,
Some believe
but I'm
lies.
still saying that our problem, most direct problem, in my opinion, and we have agreed on this, that the problem is afterwards. So this is going to come down to the governors. That's where
No, Brian, no
it
question.
meets the road.
And all we can say is, right now, two things. We want to see Harris win the election, but to do that with what you and I and Ronnie and many of us think, there's going to be more than just the vote. We want her to win by as many votes as possible. Because the more
Brian was the A students.
Oh.
Yeah, see, I don't pay attention. Yeah. Well, I wondered that when you said that, if it was, Brianna, and then I'm saying, but anyway, message me, Judy. We'll talk about it. Back to this thing, so another race that could be key, but may not be as key, is Montana. John Tester.
Okay.
And what happens is it's amazing. It's amazing that he was able to ever win in Montana. I mean, seriously. But John is a Democrat in name only. And what I mean by that is,
right.
He's like an old school, he's just a
He
good
can't
guy
even say that he's voting for Harris.
He isn't voting for Harris.
Who are you talking about?
John Tester?
He's voting. No,
Well-
he is voting for Harris. He's not endorsing her. And that's a wise political move. That
Right.
is a wise for him. And Kamala would support it 100% because she needs him in the Senate. She doesn't need his endorsement, right? She doesn't need it. But there was an interesting quote from, you talk about the divided America. You came up with that brilliant name, Brian. Well, here's another way it's divided, but I wouldn't even have thought of this. A state representative, a Democrat, was being interviewed in the New York Times. And they're asking, what's going on? What happened? Democrat, it used to be a Democratic state, and now it's Republican, and Tester's won. And he said this. I thought this was an interesting quote. Speaking of Montana, there were people that took their showers at the end of the day, not at the beginning of the day. And I struggled with that a little bit. Wait. But what he was saying is they were working class people, right? And they're not out there anymore. And they have abandoned the Democratic Party because Montana, I don't know, it would be interesting. Somebody look this up for me. I need to look her up. No, I would say, I don't know why I'm saying this. I'm going to say South Dakota is the whitest state in America, but Montana, Wyoming, and North Dakota would be in the running too, right? So what happens is because you don't have any contact with African Americans that much in those states, they're the urban enemy. That's another thing. Here we get to see, DC, we get to see all kinds of people.
Could you imagine that a state in which it's possible you never met a person of color?
I'm going to tell you that. I can answer that story from someone you know. Do you remember she taught Linnell Wilson, Linnell Issa, Linnell Schmidt? I always laughed and said 3 students get together in 20 years from now.
The first name sounds familiar, but I don't remember.
It's all the same person. She had 3 names because marriage and remarriage and that kind of stuff, and her maiden name. But anyway, she came from South Dakota, and she never encountered a black person in her life until she went to college. Okay, so that kind of answers. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Jude. That would make sense. Well, and
I'm sure they haven't seen a Jewish person either.
Well, and that's part of it. And this sounds maybe a little bit naive and Pollyannish, but it is true. It is much harder to hate the whole group if you can find one that stops you from doing that. But it's very easy to hate all blacks if you've never met someone. It's very hard to hate all blacks if you've met black people. Doesn't mean you're not a racist. I don't mean that. Because
And
what
yes,
you'll do,
Marty, I was just going to say that. Mhm.
what you're going to do is, well, they're different, or they're but still, it does add something to it. Now, we have no idea, as we sit here tonight, as the clock winds down, we have no idea what Donald Trump will do. But I can't think of anything he won't do. and
Right.
we don't know his real motivation. Is it? And they're all combined. Okay, is it like yesterday he came out with another? What do you say? It's a coin. The coin would be worth $2. He's selling it for $100, and this is how he describes it. But it has my beautiful face on it.
Well, that makes a good point, because I was just going to mention, it relates to what you just said, Dave, in that it's going to sound kind of strange. We all know that he's a narcissist, but if he really has the disease of narcissism, that he doesn't really care about anything unless his name is out there, bad, good. So this is what he wants.
There used to be a saying that when I was in journalism, way back in the dark ages when we fought off the dinosaurs, but the idea was there was a political theory, not that everybody subscribed to. It doesn't matter what they say about you as long as they say something. Get your name in the news, and that's kind of a narcissistic approach. But this time, everything right now, he doesn't have a new arsenal necessarily, and there's nothing he could do. There should be nothing he would do that would shock us. I think, and we still have so many problems. Win, lose, or draw, and there are no draws. Here's one for you. What if it gets to the House of Representatives? Automatically, the Republican candidate wins. Each state gets one vote. They're more Republican. Doesn't matter. It might even be that 13% of the country. What if it comes down to the one district in Nebraska and Maine? Now Maine won't matter. Now, did you see where they tried to change that?
Yes, we were just talking about that.
Yes, I said Lindsey Graham.
Yeah. Right. Lindsey tries to do that. Now, Lindsey's another one. Lindsey, come on, man. Look, if you ain't gay, man, let me come man you up a little bit, okay? And I'm fine if you're gay. I don't care.
No.
But there's got to be, when we talk about Roy Cohn, we talk about J. Edgar Hoover, we talk about Lindsey. There has to be a psychological price you pay when you have not you and hiding yourself. I mean, we know that
it's suppression of sexual whatever in any case is something that you can't really stop per se in your head. So this is a guy who's probably gay, and he's like a priest. He's suppressing,
and then you act out on the opposite side. As Bonnie pointed out, where
of course that's it. And I always say I think that Barney Frank must have some information that we'll never hear.
Well, I think Barney, though, I don't know him real well, although he used to frequent, he came to the museum and we were able to talk on a number of occasions. Barney Frank was just an interesting person. Yeah. He was a politically ambitious person, okay? So let's not, put him in the pantheon.
Yeah.
But what happened was he did have a core center of values about him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then some people have attacked Bernie for not having a great record against the NRA. Bernie doesn't get elected. If he does, you're not going to get elected in that state. So you have to ask yourself, and this is where I part company with the pro-Palestinian people in America. You have to ask yourself, are we better off with Trump than Harris or Biden, when it was Biden, with what we want? But
so are they going to put? You're saying you're hurting yourself by doing what you're doing, and you're putting yourself first before the country.
Well, that's easy to do. The second one is you're hurting yourself. That's what always amazes me, is how ready people are. I mean, all you have to do is look at the South and how long the white man down there has been being kept down. And the way they work around that is they say it's the others that are keeping you down. It's the others. Tonight was interesting. I went, I'm going to do a show from something else, not with us, but somebody else. I've been doing a lot of research, and it's, by the way, everyone, it's this week, Sunday today, kicked off Banned Book Week. And if there's ever been a time to work to stop banning books, it's now. So yesterday, I went to hear, excuse me, Amanda Jones, and she has a book out, great book, called That Librarian. Short version, Louisiana, speaks out once, 2 years of death threats, and still ongoing. That's how quick her own town turned on her. MAGA. Today, one of my favorite authors who I actually do know, Kwame Alexander, helped at a presentation at the Martin Luther King Library. And of course, the question comes up, and we know the answer, but the question comes up, how much impact will the presidential race have on book banning? It'll have all the world. If Kamala Harris gets in and Tim Walz, you have not only an anti-ban executive office, but Tim Walz is a teacher. And so we know how, if you get Trump and Vance, and that we could go down every
And you know what'll happen, Dave? That'll be just like the Soviet Union when they were banning publications by Russian writers. Then you have to send them out through transcripts, through the underground and all that crap. It's a mess. Again, and they get a hold, like Ron said, they get a hold. Once they get a hold, and then getting it back.
And unfortunately, I don't know. Of course, they exist. I don't know of anybody in my social circle, and I'm widening it to Facebook, which I wish they'd had a word other than friends. A lot of people I have on there, they're acquaintances, or they're just people, whatever. But widening it even to that, I don't know anybody who hasn't made up their mind. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't people who haven't out there. So, that would be the group you want to hit.
Or people who are just too lazy to vote, like the ones who say, I don't want to go out of the house tonight. It's raining, that kind of crap.
Well,
and again, Republicans will make it difficult for some people. They'll make them wait in line.
Well, I would say that that's been historically the case. But if you look at those lines in black districts, the last few elections, they came out and stayed because that's where that's where.
And that's the point.
If again,
people don't read anymore. So it's
the problem is, and what I find interesting,
you read memes.
What was it? Of the what's the generation now? Not Gen X. What's the
Z?
Yeah, Z and X. They did a survey, and 81% of them get their news from social media, and the largest social media is TikTok. Now, there's two problems with that. One is there's no governor on that. They're arguing First Amendment cases now on TikTok here. But the other thing is they really don't get they still get it from a newspaper. I mean, TikTok doesn't have reporters,
Right.
And so I just laugh when you say, I get no, you don't. You still get it from a news organization. And the problem is, I say it all the time. Unfortunately, we've had how many years of Trump now? What's that? What is it?
10.
10 years
Almost
of Trump,
10, right? Since
10 years of Trump. And they still haven't figured out how to handle them. The mainstream media. Some individuals have, right?
Right.
Certainly some of MS, Chris Hayes, Rachel, Lawrence Adal.
Right.
But the one thing you shouldn't do, and I do have to say this, and I want everybody to research this because I don't have time to research everything for me. Okay, have you been following the Olivia Nunzi case? Do you know who she is? I wouldn't expect you to. I'm just asking.
Not that
is that name
No,
at this moment.
Okay.
It's not touching.
That's fine, and I don't expect you to. It's not like I've tried. No, Olivia Nunzi is arguably one of New York City's most noted journalists. She's written for a number, but she's currently with New Yorker. This week, she was temporarily suspended from her magazine because she was having an affair with Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Right.
Now, please help me out. Please help me out. I've never heard. I meant to write the term down and I didn't. But what they said was that she said there was no physical activity. It was emotional and some other word. Now, look, if I'm going to have an affair, I'm going to get something out of it more than emotional satisfaction. I mean, we're going to do the deed.
Well, most of the people who have affairs, it is a sexual nature usually.
Yeah, but there are emotional affairs.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I call. I mean, that. How could I say this? I mean, she was wrong. It's just the same. If it was just an emotional affair, it's the same as a teacher having it. I mean,
and that was at that point in time. We don't know, given time, what would have happened.
And of course, you usually don't. I mean, that's one of the great no-nos in journalism. You do not sleep with your sources. Now, a lot of times that is what you do is if you're traveling, you sleep with all the reporters. I mean, I'm being facetious, but it's kind of true. There used to be a rule, and we used to say that's why everybody wanted to be a political reporter. If you are based east of the Mississippi, whatever happens west of the Mississippi is fine, and vice versa. So, I mean, it's nothing new, but it's just like, again, when's the last time that we've had an affair, Monica Lewinsky with Clinton, right? I mean, but it's like everything that's ever happened weird is hitting in this one. And you can't keep up with it all. You just can't. I mean, no human being can keep up with what's going on. I don't know how you could.
It's total exhaustion. But I will say that I think Democrats are getting better. Like you were saying, the news media and how they're, I think a lot of it has to do with Harris. I think like she said, I know his type. She knows how to handle it. She did a great job at the debate.
Oh, phenomenal.
And I also want to mention that I've been really seeing a lot of Hillary Clinton again. And I know she has a new book out.
That's right.
And I have to say, I think she got a really raw deal when she
no question.
Ran against Trump. And I think Judy mentioned something about, are we worried about another Al Gore situation? In a way, yes, I am. And in a way, I think that Hillary and Trump was another one of those situations because she got Russian botted out. And
absolutely.
The public fell for it. Now, I guess what I'm worried about now is that that's going to happen again. And I'm just really hoping that the Democrats are learning how to counteract that. I think they are. I think they're getting better. Will it be enough? I don't know.
We got to run a little bit long tonight just because
we're going to have to shut it down real soon here. I have to kind of...
No, I want you to do it all night. You don't need to go to school. Put up the Jill Stein thing.
Yeah, it's T-Bone. How you doing, T-Bone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Look, here's the thing. Jill Stein has every right to run for president of the United States, as does anyone who legally can run. But let's not be naive and say that she has any opportunity. So doesn't she owe it to the country to say, in such a divisive election, I can't win. So who can I throw my supporters to? And if they get mad at me, Jill, you ain't never going to be president. Okay, it ain't going to happen.
No more than Mark Robinson is.
No,
or Marianne Williamson.
Yes,
right. And now there were a couple of candidates, and I'm glad I reminded myself. There were two candidates on the Virginia ballot who I have no idea where they were. One was the Libertarians. But there were two other, like independent candidates. So I don't know if they just walk around doing that. But Ronnie, I always kind of end this or use it as we wind down. Tonight, as we end this show, so we're talking not the show particularly, but going to bed tonight, are you more confident that Harris will be victorious than you were yesterday, or are you less confident in others? It's changing day by day. What's your end as you go to bed tonight?
No, I agree with you that I think no one is changing their minds, no matter whether. I think more people will vote now that she's running.
Mm-hmm.
I think there were a lot of people that just would not vote for Joe Biden, which was such a good idea that he's not running. So do I feel more confident in the Democratic Party now? Yes. Do I feel differently about her than I did yesterday? No, I don't. I think that as soon as she took the position that she, accepted the position, the nomination, it did a complete 180 for the country. And
I would agree.
And just for the fact that she's running and he's not. And I think, she has gotten better. I think she has gotten better. She's admitted she's changed her opinion on certain things. But I think people are still worried she's going to go back to the way, and go far left. So it doesn't, I just feel that it was a great idea, and more people are going to vote Democratic than they were before.
Well, two things come up to mind on that real quickly. One is she is not far left. I don't mean that as a
Right.
defense.
She's a.
But that's what
I'm-
they think. They think
no,
she
no,
is.
Ronnie,
Yes.
that's the irony of it. You're
Yes.
far left if you're compared to MAGA, but you know
Right.
what? Hitler might have been far left if you're
Right.
a part of MAGA.
Right.
So I always find that interesting. I used to use a joke. I said, I could support Fidel Castro if he weren't so damn conservative. Half joke, but half truth. I mean, And the other thing I was thinking as you were saying this, and I don't know why I was picking up on the journalism thing. Excuse me. One of the things that I forgot to caution, I always do this, it comes out. Please, ladies and gentlemen, do not take heart or sadness in any poll that you read. Just understand. I mean, I'm not all knowing. I'm not this. I do know something about polling. And right now, today, with no prospect of anything else, it is a dead heat across America. Brian, your thoughts about where you stand? Maybe I usually you a week. Like last week we ended the show. This week we ended the show. What are you concerned about that you weren't last week, or maybe a worry's been removed, or maybe it's just worse?
No, it's the same because I have such a pessimism and such a distrust of the Republicans. I think I'm optimistic because of Kamala Harris. I'm optimistic that Walz is going to help get some votes in these states. I'm optimistic that we're going to win. And like you said, Dave, when you have the choice between Trump winning and the violence if he loses, definitely I would go for the other because I think that, we can deal with the violence. Biden will know how to deal with that. And I think they're cowards. I think, if the National Guard came out against them, I'm more concerned with what's happening in Georgia. And Wisconsin always kind of bothers me too because, they have their issues. So I would suspect Trump's very cunning, and I think he more than anybody in this country knows that he's going to lose. So he's got his flow chart just like before. If we don't have this, we go to this, we go to this, to go to this. And right down to his flight to Moscow is the last. I mean, I have no idea. So
it's frightening how he can handle and keep up with and seem to be on top of everything that comes at him and still does not fall.
I'm smiling with you, not at you. I think he doesn't. Okay, first of all, he doesn't care. He really doesn't.
It's amazing.
Secondly, he can deny every. I believe there are some things that are, just so. I think he believes him. I don't think he believes he won the election. I don't think that.
No.
But there are things that I really think he does think. As he said, I'm prettier than her. What man in their right mind would compare themselves on the pretty scale? Well, Trump will. With any woman.
It is pretty funny.
Brad Pitt, maybe, okay. Maybe George Clooney. But, few and far between. And bring up those names, it's interesting. As you see, more and more. Saw a meme today. Yeah, they have Kid Rock, but we have Eminem. I don't know if you know, who's still a pretty significant voice. And Eminem just came out for Kamala. And, of course, Oprah, that's huge.
Wow.
Okay, not surprising, right? But huge. And, of course, I would love
Taylor Swift.
I would love that. That's when I say one of my female idols for a long time has been Dolly Parton, and Taylor Swift is like Dolly's daughter. She's just that good a person, and she's always on the right side, I think. And by the way, Brian, I would have loved to have been with you today as you threw things at the television, I'm sure, with 1 minute and 40 seconds to go, saying the Eagles could not win.
I was worried.
No, you were bored. I've watched you watch a baseball game, and the first pitch is a ball, and the ball game's over.
And I've watched the sixth inning of the National League Championship when it looked like San Francisco Giants were going to, and they did beat the Phillies. That all of a sudden you said your favorite team was the Giants in the ninth inning.
Wait.
But I'm
my new favorite team, and they're winning.
I don't.
You were there, Ron. Ron, you heard him say that.
I don't deny that. I go with the winner. I know these things.
In the ninth inning, you all of a sudden change your allegiances over these last 70 years?
Yeah, why not? Go out with the winners.
And by the way, I called Brian with 1 minute and 30 seconds to go. I was not here.
Right.
And he picks up, and this is what I hear. Okay. It wasn't like hello. It was like, okay. I went, oh, okay.
Well, you're
bye.
interrupting. he wanted
Yeah, interrupting
to
my
lose.
game. Can't do that. You know, I
Okay,
can't do that.
You know what?
Usually it's hello, not okay. Okay.
But you know what? It is funny if you compare the two. The Eagles, well, any Philadelphia team, the fans are both the best and the worst, depending on in sports. There's no question about that. That's clear. And they come and go. But isn't it interesting that MAGA doesn't? They don't come and go. They're there, and that's
Right.
that's my worry also. We didn't talk about tonight, but you know, after the fact, we still have 6 conservative judges, 5 of which I believe should not be on the bench. I'm still still waiting on one, and it's not John Roberts, who now has really shown his colors. We still have, a divided. And what, if Tester loses, which I think he will, and they can't pull a seat anywhere, you got 50-50 again, or 50. So what am I saying here? We should maintain our optimism. No, we know that we have work. We know that we have work to do. That's all. And sometimes when you throw yourself into work, you can do that. Now, the other thing, and I saw this from 2 of really good friends of mine who are very, very, very working hard for Kamala. And they have, and I don't think they're joking this time, they said if Trump wins, we will leave the country. Everybody says that, but I think these 2 people were serious. They're that, and we got to remember we can't do that either.
Well, it wouldn't be
the
nice
battles,
if the Republicans would say that if Harris wins,
they never,
we're going
they
to leave
never,
the country.
they never, well, they have,
go.
but not many. But I can understand that. And one of them happens to be Jewish, and she really does fear, especially after this last quote, of him, reprisals. And I understand that's easy for me to say, but I hope enough people. I mean, we have to fight him now. We have to fight him tomorrow. We have to fight him next day, and fight for those who don't. I don't mean shoot at him or do that. I mean let's take Malcolm X by any ethical means necessary. That's it for me tonight.
All right, that's it. Ron, Dave, thank you so much. And hopefully next week, we'll be here again, that's for sure.
And Ron, I want you to come on as many shows as you can. I'm not being facetious now. I think sometimes it's a whole different dynamic when you have a third person on.
Nice. Right. I like it. It's fun.
Yeah, no.
And I'm so frustrated. I can get my frustrations out.
Well, that's something.
Yeah.
And now Brian wanted to bring on Lauren Boebert, and I said no. And then he wanted to bring on Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I said no. And then he wanted to bring on Laura Loomer, and I said absolutely not. So I'm glad that he did agree to you being on, because he turned down the other 3 women.
All right, I do have to get to sleep, so
why?
I'm going to shut you both down.
I just want to say, I noticed that Anthony Davis said that he agreed that he thought that the assassination attempts were a stunt. So Anthony, if you see any info, post it on Divided We Stand. I'm right there with you.
All right. Well, at one time I didn't think that the Epstein suicide was staged, but now I
see, there's one that I've never. We're going to do this show forever now. There's one that I never believed day one that somebody didn't take.
You don't let something like that happen. That's
there's no
messed up.
And the cameras go out.
It's all part of it. It's all part of it. Yeah.
There is. All right.
It's called Mafia. Good night.
Okay. Sandy says good night to you, Ronnie. Okay.
Good night, Sandy. See you on Facebook.
Brian,
all right, adios, folks. And again,
I'll call you every hour on the hour tonight.
Make sure you subscribe and pay no mind to that guy over
no, well, you
there.
know what? I mean,
there.
Why can't you just go? I mean, why do you have to sleep? Just go into school.
Good night, Prince.